Hey guys, welcome back. So this week we're going to touch on what's involved in a driver fit. Matt is a familiar face who you've probably seen in videos that we've done in the past, and very good golfer. And today we're going to dial it back a little bit. Matt's club head speed is roughly around about normally.
We had like a couple of 116 to 118 readings.
Right, so tour speed, what we consider real kind of PGA Tour quality speed. So we don't feel like that is appropriate for you guys to see someone go through a driver fit at that speed, because there's so few people out there who really genuinely swing at that speed. So we're going to dial that back today. Yeah. We see most of the customers that come into TXG swing at around 100 miles an hour. So we're going to try and get this kind of video to appeal to the widest audience we can. And Matt's highly skilled enough. He's going to be able to dial it back while we can still control all the variables that go into a driver fit. So today we're going to start with a really generic driver, 10.5, 65 grams stiff. Okay, so we really don't know what this driver is going to do yet. We're going to just put it under the kind of normal standardized conditions that we test a product at, and then we're going to start to work off the variables.
And this driver, for example, this would be a good instance of something a customer might come in with off the rack. They bought it and they come see you and it's just not working for them.
Exactly. So they might kind of wonder, firstly, how does it perform? Is there room for improvement? So they might be generally pretty happy with it. Yeah. But they might be in just to validate, the performance of it and see if any of the new stuff, we've all seen in the last couple of weeks, the new TaylorMade product. Callaway's just about to launch new product, so they want to see how a driver they've had for a year or so, how that stacks up.
Absolutely.
So, we want to show you some of the variables that go into a driver fit at TXG. And give you an idea of what you can expect. So,
perfect.
Matt, let's hit a few. Let's get some numbers going. So try and kind of roughly swing around that 100 mile an hour mark. Okay, so carry just over 230 or so.
102.
Okay. So right around that kind of window we were trying to get.
Yeah, a little quicker, but close enough.
Okay, so looking at the ball strike a little bit low in the face, we created a little bit too much spin. All right, so definitely room to improve the efficiency of that. So
absolutely.
Let's go with a couple more.
And how much do you find that a heel strike that was 8 millimeters?
Yeah.
How much do you think that matters? Like if someone's, they might analyze the spin and say that's way too much spin, but is that heel strike most of that?
Absolutely. So what happens is when you strike it below the equator of the club, what happens is you get downward deflection of the head. So the head will deflect down. That's what creates the low launch.
So that's this
exactly.
motion. Gotcha. Okay.
And then what creates the uprising in spin, the increase in spin, is the gear effect. Okay. So the ball will always gravitate towards the center of the club. Right. So think of it this way: if you strike it low in the face, the spin rate is going to go up.
Right.
Okay. So if you simulate that. So if you create collision, so you can push your finger into the club face. Yeah. Okay. Downward deflection occurs and upward spin occurs.
Gotcha. So it's climbing the face.
So that's the gearing.
Way.
That's the ball gearing against the face.
Gotcha.
So you do the opposite of that and you strike it high in the face.
Yeah.
Right. You get the deflection upwards.
Right.
That's where the high launch and the lowering of the spin. So the spin will lower back down towards the CG.
Gotcha.
Down in the middle of the head.
Right.
Okay.
So that's a big factor to look for when you're fitting someone, obviously.
Huge. Impact point is huge. And that's where Foresight Sports, the GC code, helps us so much.
Absolutely. A little slicey, but I think more centered that time. Should be a little
definitely looks like it's still carrying a little excess spin, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So, wow. All right.
Lots of spin, right?
You're absolutely right. So we were pretty close to the middle of the golf club there.
Yeah, 5 millimeters is essentially
5
center,
millimeters
right?
down is next to nothing.
Gotcha.
So we're still creating 4,100 RPMs of backspin.
Yep.
So we definitely want to see if we can get that down a little bit. Okay. Let's see two more.
I may have swung a little faster that time.
Yeah. So definitely carried a bit further.
A little further, yeah. I definitely swung faster.
You're doing a nice job of holding it back, though.
Trying, yeah.
Not an easy thing to do, is it, when you're trying to swing slower? Okay, so let's look at that. We don't even need to see another shot.
Sure, that one's a little faster.
That was perfect, because look where you hit that one.
Yeah, it was dead center, right?
So close to the middle. and we're still carrying a little bit too much spin.
Yeah.
So let's go quickly. I'm going to just jump back around with you here, and I just want to quickly touch on the variables that go into spin creation.
Okay.
So right now, the main variables we're going to work with that are creating too much spin for Matt, look at your angle of attack. We're looking at 0.7 downward.
Right.
Okay, with 18.5 degrees of dynamic loft. So what that does is creates a spin window. We call it spin loft. So there's your 0.7 downwards. Okay, so that creates the bottom of the plane. The loft creates the top jaw of the plane. Okay, so if we want to lower the spin with a strike as good as that, our number one job is to basically shut that plane down a little bit.
Gotcha.
So that's either getting you to change your swing and move your angle of attack up, or bringing your loft down.
Gotcha.
Significantly easier to bring the loft down than it is to change someone's angle of attack.
Yeah.
You know, we're not in here to change golf swings. We can make a recommendation that somebody might want to take their, you know, what they've got going on and go and refine their technique and then get the most out of club fitting. But really, we're not making wholesale changes to people's, you know, technique in here.
That type of change is not the kind of thing you could do overnight. It's going to be
definitely. It's going to take some time to get consistent with it and be comfortable with it.
Gotcha.
And looking at that picture, I mean, that is an absolutely fantastic delivery. You know, pretty much zero in the angle of attack, zero in the club path with a centered strike.
So
what more do you
neutral,
want?
So we just need to bring that loft down.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
gotcha.
we just need to try and shut down that spin loft window like we talked about. So if you're out there and you're creating too much spin in the golf ball, you probably want to check the loft on your driver versus your angle of attack. That will be one of the major reasons you're creating too much backspin.
Gotcha.
Okay. So we need to shut that down. So we've got a few different ways we can do that. We can look at the shaft to create less deflection, so we create less dynamic loft.
Okay.
We can look at static loft, go from a 10.5 down to 9.5, or we could go to a head with slightly different characteristics.
Gotcha.
With a different center of gravity.
So when you say the shaft affecting the loft, is that the way the shaft is bending this way?
Exactly.
Towards the ball?
Right. So
Gotcha.
in club fitting terms, or engineering terms, it's called lead deflection.
Okay.
Okay. So the mass of the club head will create 99.9% of the time will create lead deflection.
Right.
So that's creating energy and kind of upward movement towards the golf ball. Okay,
this is going this way.
Exactly.
Here.
So we'll get a little bit of deflection sort of going that way.
Right. And people will probably be familiar with seeing that slow motion replays on TV.
For sure.
And that shaft is kind of bending that way.
A little bit, without a doubt. And some of the ones that appear in YouTube clips and different stuff, that's actually the frames. There's not enough frames being used at that time, so it actually distorts the shaft.
So they need to be looking at high quality slow motion capture to see what is actually occurring.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
You need to be using a really high quality, high frame lens to be able to see exactly what's going on. So lead deflection is the reason the shaft would create too much loft and therefore too much spin. And then obviously, like we said, static loft will play a part. So just let's go get a 9.5 head and see what it does on the same shaft. We're going to basically, say that you like the shaft and you want to keep that. You've invested in a really high quality shaft. You want to get the most out of that, and maybe you want to change the head.
So this is probably not a situation where you would recommend a shaft change for someone that coming in with this kind of results. The head change is more valuable for their money, right?
For sure.
Gotcha.
For sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's do
it.
Okay.
Okay. So here we are back. So we've just changed one variable with Matt. And that's, sorry, take that back. We've changed two variables with the new driver. We've actually went from the 917D2 into the 917D3. Right. Okay, so slightly smaller head, 440cc. We've went from 10.5 down to 9.5.
Right.
So we've went with the kind of slightly lower spinning head, slightly smaller profile, and less loft.
Gotcha.
So we're going to see if that helps us lower that spin rate a little bit. Okay. So let's hit a couple with that. We've kept the shaft the same. Graphite design MJ.
And this, just so people know, the MJ series is a higher launching, higher spinning.
It is. It's a more tip active shaft. You'll see a lot of LPGA players playing it.
Yep.
And the average speed on the LPGA is quite, relevant to
kind of around 9,800, something like that.
Yeah, I mean 94.
Oh,
so it's right around what the average male swings it at.
Gotcha.
So average male swings at around 94 miles an hour, and the average LPGA player swings around 94 miles an hour. So that's why when you see the LPGA players, pay attention to their equipment.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's probably more relevant to you than PGA Tour players. So
yeah, it's tough to get men around that thought, but it's true, right? Might be a little out the heel.
Okay. Certainly a slightly different flight. I'll be curious to see if that was if it was much less spin.
I swung too fast. That's the first problem.
But so if we go strike point to strike point on those last two, so there was 1 millimeter difference between the vertical impact.
Yep.
And there was 2 millimeters difference between the sort of the heel toe contact.
Essentially the same.
Right. So pretty much right on the same.
Yep.
And we had 500 RPMs of difference. We had higher launch, lower spin.
Yeah.
So what we've resulted in is a 9-yard pickup and carry already.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's hit a couple more.
A little more speed, but the launch conditions were a lot better.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So Matt, you talked about something a little bit when just when we were putting the new head together there.
Yeah.
You said to me something about the loft of the original driver, the 10.5.
For sure.
Gave you lots of confidence.
So it's a lot of loft for what I'm used to normally.
Yeah.
But it sort of felt a little more confident at address, seeing a little bit of extra loft there versus this club here. It's not a lot different.
Right.
But the straighter face, just mentally, it's, you maybe feel like you have the ability to spin it left and right more.
Yeah, for sure.
So my thought was, how do you bridge the person who says, I like that loft, I don't want to go lower because I don't have confidence in it.
Yeah.
Can we tweak the shaft to sort of fit that head, even though it may not be the correct loft for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we have the ability to kind of change the variable that is the shaft or change the variable that is the head.
Yeah.
What we should do now is once we're finished with the lower lofted head with that shaft, we should then go back to the original head with a more stiffer profile and see if the look that gave you the confidence, if there's a more appropriate shaft for you with that head.
Yeah.
So let's do both.
Okay. Because a lot of the result can come from just the way they're swinging. If they're confident, you may not be able to get them to hit good shots with even a better fit head, right? It's a little toey.
Okay. So the toe strike, we know that gives us a little bit of that gear effect. We get a little draw spin, we get a little less backspin. Yeah. There you go. Okay. So
speed was a little better. So let's get a little better contact there. That should be a little better.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
it's noticeably lower flight, isn't it?
It is much.
Versus those first.
And it doesn't climb either, does it?
No, it's definitely hits its peak in it. It's very flat. I mean, almost we could probably argue a little too flat. Spin rate. For someone swinging at 102 miles an hour, 21 RPMs of backspin, to have a backspin number that low, we would need more launch.
Yeah, and the strike wasn't bad enough.
Strike was good.
That
was pretty good in that window.
Do you want to see one more and see if we can get an average, or is that?
Let's do that. So the first one we can see certainly the face was a little open, which is why we had it higher.
Yeah. But as you said, even still, that spin was 500 lower, even with more ball speed, more everything. Yeah. So it's a better fit right off the bat.
So quite a difference. There's right now on the averages. Now we did have that toe strike where we got the low spin rate there, but right now we're sitting at 1,500 RPM difference in spin.
Even if you took the toe strike out, you're still a few hundred less.
Yeah,
easily,
absolutely.
Right?
So take the toe strike out, you're still at 1,200.
Yeah. Yeah, felt pretty solid. Just face is a hair open, but I would.
Fades, fine.
Left edge of the fairway or so would probably be there. It's a little fast. And 102 again.
Really nice.
So ball speed wise, like 140 to 150, that's most people are going to be in that range, right?
Right around there, yeah. Okay. Mid and kind of low 140s is an average of what we see.
And you had mentioned earlier, just in case people don't know, the GC Quad club head speed numbers are always going to read higher than TrackMan. So realistically on TrackMan, that's 96.
About 98, 99. There's about a 3 mile an hour, 3 to 4 mile an hour difference.
And ball speed will be the same.
The output's read the same. It just reads the club as it comes into impact slightly differently.
Gotcha.
GC Quad's picking up the face versus TrackMan's picking up the CG, so the center of the driver. Basically.
Generally, this is more accurate then, obviously.
Yeah. So I mean, they are both accurate at what they measure.
Yeah.
So this just measures the club face, which we find is a slightly more appropriate point to measure because it's the holy grail what the face is doing.
Yeah.
You know, rather than measuring, 30 to 40 millimeters back from the club face, which is where the CG of the driver is.
Here versus here.
So the middle, even not so much the back of it, but
it's here.
It measures the middle of the driver.
Gotcha.
Exactly. So
gotcha.
That's the differences. And so some people come in and they'll go, when they're on GC Quad, they'll go, wow, that club head speed's a lot higher than I'm used to. I must be swinging it well today. It's just a different measurement.
So they should keep an eye on the ball speed and they'll see it's the same.
That's it. That will probably be consistent with what they normally do.
So that last one, that was a pretty good strike, and the spin is just way lower, right?
It's you're sitting. So we take out for
get rid
average's
of that
sake,
one.
We're going to look at a spin window that's much more manageable.
Yeah.
And actually, which is interesting, the launch angle has come up a little bit as well. So that's the holy grail, is trying to get the launch, up a little bit and the spin down a little bit. That's what creates much more carry. So you've picked up 16 yards on carry distance.
And the ball speeds are the same average, actually, spot on. So
it's nice.
So we can see that for sure it's the spin. The spin is giving you the extra 10 yards.
That's
or so,
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So would you say the loft is more to blame for that, or the head? Because people will ask, the D3 is a different head design. That's like minor compared to the loft in terms of a factor?
No, I would say the design characteristics of the D3 being a more compact head versus the CG in that case would be closer to the face, further forward.
Yep.
And the D2 being a slightly bigger profile, bigger footprint.
It's bigger heel or front to back.
Front to back.
Yeah.
So it's more elongated from front to back. So that brings the CG back and creates a little bit more spin. Also creates more forgiveness.
Yeah.
When you bring that CG a little bit further away, it increases the MOI of the driver, the moment of inertia. So if you're susceptible to off-center strikes, you want more inertia. You want more kind of resistance to the twisting.
Right.
Gotcha. So we have to balance out what we need more of. Is it distance or forgiveness? You're in the case that you strike it in such a good spot. So if we look at both clubs and how comparable the strike is, if we go to the club, so I mean they're pretty much in the same spot.
Those are the averages of.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
That's the averages of the two strike patterns.
Very cool.
So you struck the D3 a little bit higher and slightly more toe.
Yeah.
You struck the D2 slightly more centered and down.
Now, there is a slight difference between my attack angle. It's only a degree. Is that likely to really make a huge difference?
It's not going to account for the amount of difference we just saw on spin rate.
So that's a standard variance that wouldn't really affect it.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
You're looking at 1,200 RPMs of difference.
Yeah.
And if we look at the biggest difference, so if we go to the dynamic loft, 19.4 versus 15.9.
Gotcha.
Huge difference in the dynamic loft.
So that's going to account for that change.
Big time.
Okay.
So that when we were talking before about the spin loft window, so you only change angle of attack by 1, but you change dynamic loft much more than that.
Right.
More like 3.5.
So the 1 degree could just be I swung differently slightly, which is going to be common anyway. No one's going to swing exactly the same.
The exact same all the time, for sure.
Perfect.
So there's using the head as the variable.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's
try
go back
shaft.
to the original head with a new shaft.
Sounds good.
Okay. So the previous change we made was we put on a different head at a different loft.
Yep.
Based on what Matt said, and we're going off of the scenario where Matt's brought as a driver, and maybe he doesn't want to change the whole driver. Maybe he wants to see, okay, is it a new shaft I need, or is it a new head? Is there one that I can kind of keep a hold of and maybe invest in the head or the shaft, not both? So what we're going to do this time is we're actually going to simulate with the original head, the D2 10.5, but we're going to change the shaft. So we're going to completely go the opposite end of the spectrum on shaft characteristics.
Right.
The previous shaft was the Graphite Design MJ, very tip soft, definitely designed to increase the launch angle and spin rate, dynamic loft, get it to kind of kick and load a little bit more. This will do the opposite. Gotcha. You'll feel this instantly, and it'll be, this will be great to get your feedback on what the shaft feels like and what it makes you want to do, because the influence of the way the club feels changes how you deliver the club.
Of course.
All right. So when we talk to our fitters, and we feel like our objective is to put together the club that brings out the best in the player's golf swing, the most consistency, the best obviously launch conditions. So let's see if this shaft brings out sort of the right characteristics in that head.
And as you say, that's sometimes what's best for that golfer is not scientifically your best fitting recommendation, right? You
Definitely.
may find that tweaks are necessary to get a person comfortable and where they're swinging their best, right? Felt nice, much flatter.
So different for that head compared to what we saw the first time around.
Totally different flight. And it actually felt, it felt easier to square up for whatever reason. It just felt a little bit, I guess the other shaft maybe felt like it was getting a little behind me, and I was kind of leaving it open.
So you were actually feeling the deflection of the shaft, and it was creating a bit of a kind of inconsistency in your timing?
It felt, yeah, exactly. The timing felt a little awkward with the other one, where I felt the need to square it up myself, right?
If we look at what that one just done there, I mean, there was no sign of any of those types of backspin sort of numbers on the original combo.
Yeah, that's a massive difference.
Massive difference.
What was the launch angle, or the attack angle difference?
It was fairly close to zero.
So it's close enough. So
yeah. So let's. I just want to quickly look at the strike point difference. So we're not looking at a strike that was pretty much in the same spot.
Yeah.
Your efficiency, your ball speed was significantly higher, Matt.
Mm-hmm. And swung quite a bit slower.
Yeah.
A few miles an hour slower.
A few miles an hour slower, but I mean that's a pretty efficient.
So energy transfer was better with the shaft.
It was,
according to that shot, right? Yeah, that's interesting. That's an example of a shaft making a huge difference.
Huge difference.
That's a little hooky.
Okay.
I don't think I towed it, but I definitely
just shut it down a little bit.
Shut it down, yeah. Should probably show that it's closed.
Yeah, strike was very similar to the previous one.
Yeah, just a little closed. Okay. Yeah, again, it's the shaft is feeling very different as I come through impact.
Okay.
I think I'm delivering it a little bit easier.
A little bit on the heel.
Yeah, it didn't feel too bad. Okay. I think I swung quite a bit slower.
You can hear the pitch of the driver. So when you hear the pitch of the driver go up a little bit, you know that you've hit it a little bit more on the perimeter.
Yeah, so that was
marginally heel.
Closer to the grooves there, yeah.
Yep. So it was 8 millimeters into the heel, so it was a little bit.
But heel strike on the other one was closer to 4,000 spin, so I guess that's managing it a little better.
So we see the spin spike up a little bit. The dynamic loft window just goes up too much with this driver. That's probably the biggest variable we're seeing right now.
Gotcha.
When you go to the 10.5 head, your variance in dynamic loft is quite severe.
Getting back up there. Yeah. Yeah, not a bad hit, but it's funny. It's probably not as consistent as that second one, is it?
Definitely not. Definitely not. Yeah, look at the spin difference. 23, 19, 34, 19.
Yeah.
That's the complete opposite of what we're looking for. We're trying to see a spin window that's much tighter than that.
And at that speed, it was just much more consistently struck with the second one, right?
Definitely. Okay, let's hit one more.
Okay. It's a better hit.
Yeah. Definitely a different flight.
Yeah. It's amazing that shot can go that low with so much loft, right?
I know.
Yeah, that was a much better one, wasn't it?
So looking at the delivery, yeah, de-lofted it a little bit. You actually struck down on that one a little bit more, which is quite uncommon for you. When you look at your angle of attack, I suppose you've been a little bit down on it today. We normally see a little bit more up than that.
So even with the downward angle, the shaft is managing that spin better than the first one.
Exactly. So because the downward, when you swing a little bit down with angle of attack, we have to make sure that the loft of the driver isn't too high, or you're just going to spin it way too much.
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if we throw all that into the mix and kind of all the variables that go along with it, very different club head speed with this one. Did you feel like you were trying to swing it any different?
I think I was I'm dialing it back a little bit.
Okay.
I could try a couple with a little more speed. Okay, that should be, I think, closer to the way I swung before.
Yeah. Awesome.
That felt better.
I mean,
Yeah.
that
should be about as much as you can get out of it, for that one?
Doubt.
Yeah.
So launch is good, spin's good. So we see with that particular swing, I mean, you're not going to get any more out of it than that.
Yeah.
Swinging at 99 miles an hour, 265 is
it's great, right?
It's pretty optimal.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Most people you see coming in with 99, they're getting 240 total kind of thing.
For sure. So I think the kind of what we're seeing is, and maybe some of the inconsistencies of what we're seeing, probably not fair to judge because you're dialing your swing back 15 miles an hour.
Yep.
So some of the inconsistencies will be you're used to swinging quicker than that.
But a lot of your players coming in, there's going to be variance during your fitting anyway, I guess, right? Where you have to deal with what's, what is them, what is the club,
the variables that go into it. No question. So I think what we saw though was that changing the shaft on the original head was less consistent than actually changing the head on the original shaft. So going with the graphite design with a slightly lower lofted head was more consistent. So
absolutely.
That's the process. That's what we find. That's why we go through the full hour and a half that we spend with our customers.
Yeah.
And we manage all those variables. So
this is just a taste, obviously. We tried 2 drivers, and there's a lot more you can do. But
without doubt.
Yeah.
So it gives you an idea of what you're going to expect if you come to somewhere like TXG and go through a driver fit. So come on in with an open mind, whether it be a head change, a shaft change, or nothing, just a tweak. Whatever it may be. We'll use our technology and our expertise to lead you there.
Yeah, and lots more to come with different golfers, different shafts, different heads. Are going to have a whole bunch of stuff coming up over the next few weeks. We're
really looking forward to it.
Awesome, thank you.